Let us execute an immediate, sweeping analytical vector shift away from mid-century suburban captivity prisons, weaponized medical hysteria diagnostics, and historical housewife isolation parameters, and plunge straight into the high-octane calculation-heavy tracking grids of modern real estate warfare, weaponized neighborhood envy psychological thriller deployment loops, and the fiercely protective, dangerously fragile world of an endangered collection of raw millennial trauma survival and domestic perfection assets running a raw tactical survival loop. We are crossing the threshold directly into the hyper-monitored, paranoia-slicked parameters of a scorched, high-density contemporary luxury renovation site and pristine smart home community layout, exploring the lethal analytical parameters of a devastating gentrified lifestyle extraction matrix with our dream home, the exceptional pulse-pounding contemporary thriller and comprehensive residential deception compendium engineered by the absolute undisputed global sovereign of breathtaking property secrets, razor-sharp narrative traps, and high-velocity structural friction, Jessica Huntley. This high-stakes narrative tracking sequence delivers an exceptional look at an operational crossroads, where an endangered primary homebuyer asset running an unyielding truth extraction loop, a calculating, manipulative shadow network of a highly competitive neighborhood syndicate, and an absolute defense against an encroaching, architecturally confined psychological erasure containment zone collide at terminal velocity. Let us map the strategic narrative grid. If you are an elite enthusiast of high-octane, slow-burn creative journeys, where endangered, hyper-observant, protective spouse protagonists must navigate an absolute maze of rigged character perspectives, corrupt property deeds, and a deadly ring of active personal deadline frame-ups while running a blind survival loop inside a completely compromised domestic ecosystem, where an analytical mind uses deep psychological profiling, calculated renovation budgeting boundaries, and absolute emotional stamina to outmaneuver an invisible predatory executioner asset, weaponizing highly advanced smart home surveillance and suburban gaslighting mechanics, and where the author utilizes an incandescent, meticulously paced real estate captivity envy incubator tracking of vulnerable young couple who deploy advanced surveillance and clandestine neighborhood allies to systematically forge a seemingly impregnable defense before crossing a terminal exposure milestone diagnostic routine to test our hero's structural limits. This book is engineered to lock you in. Huntley completely dominates the high-precision, unreliable narrative jeopardy meets suffocating narrative erasure puzzles dynamic, capturing the heart-racing intellectual momentum, suffocating blank-page paranoia, and heavy deductive depth popularized by genre vargs like Gillian Flynn, Lucy Foley, Ruth Ware, and Frida McFadden, while treating realistic baseline terminology logistics, complex dark possessive loyalty arcs, and protective high-density isolation extraction grids with absolute technical mastery. The narrative tracking grid zeroes in on the highly volatile, calculation-heavy baseline of our central legendary powerhouse creative asset, operating under a severe calculation-heavy handicap of a total loss of financial safety networks, absolute structural liquidation logs, and a hyper-visible targeting canvas within a cutthroat high-end neighborhood social matrix. Behind our protagonists' rigorous daily footprints, defensive conversational shields, and sharp observation metrics lies an intricate matrix of hidden structural vulnerabilities, deeply buried survival instincts, and sharp, high-stakes tactical maneuvers. Her collective defense mechanisms are locked down tight following an abrupt plot outline deviation sequence, sinking life savings into an idyllic fixer-upper, only to discover it hides a legacy of horrific historical violence. Her entire analytical focus strictly consumed by monitoring sudden threat vectors from a network of internal distraction forces, parsing complex behavioral shifts in her daily multi-POV interaction loops, and shielding her vulnerable personal sovereignty node from being entirely wiped out by a ruthless elite community offensive. The spark ignites when an unexpected, high-frequency structural anomaly breaches her active scanning perimeter. While sorting through a series of routine daily renovation constraints inside her highly monitored gated cul-de-sac, our primary asset registers a total security breach when her neighbor's psychological onboarding sequence initializes an irregular descent into active home invasion defense logs, systematically tracking hidden midnight lawn movements, forbidden architectural modifications, and unvetted property line history associations, forcing her into a proximity tracking matrix with an oncoming narrative resolution. Behind the wealthy property world's pristine, smooth aesthetic facade and elite behavioral mapping style lies an intricate matrix of severe ideological warfare and a cold, calculation-heavy target containment blueprint.
As the hostile adversarial investigation phases enter an increasingly lethal terminal tier across a ticking log timeline, the unauthorized discovery of missing historical truth templates, hidden intimate motivations, and altered typographic tracking templates reveals that her entire renovation sanctuary was an explicitly engineered trap. The standard boundaries of routine community courtesy and peaceful civilian compliance protocols crumble, and our central protagonists run completely out of standard diplomatic escape vectors. She is thrust directly into an active invisible war behind closed smart doors, where a highly manipulative psychological gaslighting matrix launches aggressive countermeasures to permanently suppress her survival data stream and execute her complete systemic erasure. The tactical parameters instantly explode as their social and survival warfare turns completely active, transforming the large entertaining spaces, dark half-finished basements, and private fortified master suites into a volatile psychological pressure cooker and a physical battle zone. Our protective, hyper-vigilant heroine is forced to deploy her massive intuitive tradecraft, elite behavioral mapping skills, and raw physical stamina to preserve her focus before her adversary's relentless, calculation-heavy proximity containment phase permanently deletes her boundaries. The threat vector remains purposeful and resolute, shifting dynamically through precise execution guidelines from initial mortgage signing ceremonies to final structural manuscript release loops across multiple unreliable points of view, determined to deploy deep sensory manipulation loops, continuous psychological gaslighting via digital distraction maneuvers, and persistent dominance to shatter her defense, only to realize her hardened survival protocols and shifting counter-narratives match their opponent's raw tactical speed step for step. Every midnight archival excavation of personal legal journals, every silent choice to stand off against an electronic apex predator behind standard structural barriers, and every intense moment of channeling raw, unyielding survival mechanics chips away at her reliance on original peaceful rules. What follows is an exceptional, high-stakes war of perspective, tactical position, and raw human grit. We watch the Predator Network's deceptive perimeters completely unwrapped as Jessica Huntley reveals that the true victory requires more than just surviving an initial week 1 ambush or managing an invasive marital disclosure. It demands an absolute, uncompromising defense of individual dignity, personal truth, and systemic survival against a cold, calculating machine of domestic manipulation and absolute structural supremacy. While our central characters smooth over each other's psychological and defensive blind spots with devastating analytical force, creating a fiercely protective, absolute web of dark, possessive loyalty around their building creative survival alliance. A brutal series of close-quarters tactical confrontations and high-stakes midstream point-of-view shifts switches the clock into its terminal phase, proving that deep-seated obsession has tracked them to their final outpost. To survive the impending locked grid trap and permanently secure her sanctuary, a resilient protagonist must unleash an absolute, unyielding defense of her final boundary lines. It is a high-velocity domestic real estate, smart home captivity noir, gated community deception mystery, high-velocity contemporary puzzle masterpiece that treats deep relational logistics and intense structural friction with elite precision. The tension here burns with a sharp, calculation-heavy intensity. We are talking about that high-frequency, one unreliable narrative lie triggers a fatal deadline showdown energy, where a sudden pause during an active franchise tactical briefing, an unexpected shift in an adversary's protective physical posture during a high-stakes standoff confrontation, or a heavy, possessive realization that an elite intelligence operative has completely mapped your personal coordinates carries massive structural weight. Huntley writes with an exceptionally fresh, vivid, and beautifully blunt voice, capturing the heavy, oppressive atmosphere of a private executive vault before a major corporate fallout, and the distinct, subtle scent of fresh white paint, drywall dust, digital surveillance relays, smartphone glare, cold sweat, dark adrenaline, and pure, unadulterated suspense. What truly elevates this contemporary instructional marvel into elite territory is the author's unmatched ability to balance complex, high-stakes relationship dynamics and genuine protective power tradecraft alongside a breathtaking narrative pace and deep emotional hooks. Our protagonists don't rely on unbelievable, superficial Hollywood superhero action tropes. Their immense situational intelligence, strategic patience, and profound survival instincts match the complexity of the chaotic, modern corporate and high society underworld they dominate step for step, making their choices to risk everything feel profoundly authentic and deeply gripping. The pacing moves with calculated momentum, tracking intense conversational standoffs and breathtaking tactical breakthroughs before ratcheting up to an absolute, jaw-dropping conclusion that delivers total, hard-earned advancement to their horizon. Our Dream Home is the definitive pro-level upgrade your high-stakes contemporary thriller and intense asset suspense library demands right now. It is elegant, immensely fast-paced, and utterly unputtable. It proves that when your entire sanctuary is targeted by a cold, calculating institutional monster, the most revolutionary play you can execute is to lock your perimeters, trust your elite survival training, and fight like hell with your network to rewrite the data. So, secure your personal reading sanctuary, review your emotional defensive perimeters, open your Kindle, and prepare to track the fleet.